astronomers have found an ascent star 750 light years from Earth that shoots colossal jets of water, a cosmic fire hose out its pole in bullet-like pulses, in a process that almost defies adjectives and analogies. Each jet of water is the equivalent of 100 million times the water flowing through the Amazon River every second. Just put that into context. 100 million times the amount of water in the Amazon River every second. That's a big amount of water. And then the next comparison is that these giant bullets of water that come out of these protostars is at a speed equivalent to 80 times the muzzle velocity of an AK-47 assault rifle. I love these comparisons. So it just allows us to imagine the magnitude of this and how it's possible for it to do this up in space. So let's carry on. I'm going to carry on. I've covered this enough. And finally, we get out of those quotes of all these different magazines, and I can suddenly go and tell you that it makes a lot more sense to me than ever before, because I can start recognizing some of the very important information we get in the Bible. And to me, suddenly the Bible makes a lot more sense than ever before. What does the opening phrase of the Bible say? The very first opening phrase: the Spirit of God moved over the waters. Isn't that interesting? And then God said, let there be light. So it tells us that God, the creator, or the consciousness, or the source code of creation, was moving over the waters or through the waters. There was already water before creation started. And then God said, or the creator put a frequency, sound, resonance, vibration. God said, let there be light. So God spoke creation into the water, and everything happened after that. Well, what is it when we put sound and vibration and frequencies into water? That is called sonoluminescence, light from sound. And this is a well-studied phenomenon, believe it or not. A lot of people are unaware of this. Sonoluminescence has been very well studied. It's often referred to as a star in a jar. It's been done many times in experiments where you take a round sphere of water and you attach a bunch of sound instruments to it. You can see the sound frequencies that are going into it from the side. And then you attach it to this whole arrangement that puts sound through it. And after a little while, they put a bubble in the center of that water. And after a little while, that bubble is filled with a bright light. And this is what they call a star in a jar. And I find this absolutely fascinating, because when you look at this light and the light that it emits from the star in a jar experiment, it very, very strongly resembles many of the images we see of exploding stars out in the universe that we've been shown by NASA. I'm going to show you some examples now. I want to come back to this a little bit longer. The star in a jar thing is phenomenal. It's very important. There are, however, what I've just realized recently is that there are two types of star in a jar experiments, or two types of sonoluminescence experiments. The first thing we need to come to terms with is that when you put sound frequency or resonance or vibration into a body of water, it creates light. And this is why when we read this, when God, Spirit of God, moved over the waters and God said, let there be light, it's the sound of creation that created light. And that's exactly what we see here, whether it's in this experiment where they put the bubble in the center of it, or in the other. Let me just show you. These are some other images from space from NASA. It shows us explosions of so-called supernovas, or stars that are exploding. My question is, are they showing us stars that are exploding, or are they showing us stars that are busy forming? And the reason I say this is because when they, this is from January 2020, this is from some of the observatories. On the left, you can see there's nothing there. and then suddenly there's a big white dot, like the star in a jar. There was nothing, and then suddenly there's a star in a jar, a white dot, and they tell us that that's a supernova that's exploding. Well, did they detect that before, or did it just suddenly appear out of nowhere? And now suddenly they say, oh, look, there's a supernova exploding. But is it actually a new star being born rather than a new star exploding and dying, as they call it, modern astronomy calls it? So very important. I'm going to come back to the star in a jar. Well, sonoluminescence. There's a different kind of sonoluminescence that forms that happens without the bubble. So when you take a body of water like this and you do not put a bubble in the center of it, and you expose this body of water to sound frequencies as well, certain vibrations, it also reacts and responds. But this time, the experience that you get is very different. It doesn't create a star in a jar like the previous one, that very bright light that comes out of that bubble. What you see is something like this. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find images of this, but I was present in 2012 when I went to the Breakthrough Energy Conference in Hilversum, Holland. And I did my lecture there, and that's where I actually met some of the very important people that have become a large part of my life, like Professor Ilya Lakitsevich, David Martin, Sasha Stone, and various other incredible minds that I've become friends with and have contact with over the years. That's 10 years ago now, or 11 years ago. So I went to this demonstration of sonoluminescence down in the basement, and it absolutely blew my mind. At the time, I wasn't actually, I'll retract that statement, because it didn't blow my mind. And I recall I was slightly disappointed because I expected like a star in a jar. I expected a bang, a bright light, and that kind of thing. But instead, what I found was something like this: very faint lines and streaks, like lightning in the bottle, that fills the whole, pretty much the whole sphere. It all depends what frequency you put in there. It starts with one little lightning streak that forms in there, and then more form, and then pretty soon you see something like this. It doesn't stay for long, because at this stage, I'm not sure why it doesn't stay for long, but this is what you see. You observe something like this. And at the time, I wasn't that impressed and a little bit disappointed. But suddenly, in hindsight, I realized what I witnessed. I witnessed the other side of sonoluminescence, where one creates this bright explosion of light that forms in this empty bubble, and the other one that forms these connecting strands of energy and plumes that give you this kind of image. And so at this stage, I'm going to leave this to your interpretation. I'm reaching my own conclusions and interpretations as to what it is that we look at when we look out at space and at stars, and what it is that we're looking at. I'm going to leave it up to you, but this is phenomenal. So keep in mind that we're also told, since now we know that there's water everywhere in space, and stars are made from water, and there's water on the stars and on our sun, and so forth. We're also then told that our solar system is surrounded by water, right? And ice. They tell us that the Kuiper belt is this extending disk. So just beyond the furthest planets in our solar system, there's this disk. It's like, it seems to be like the continuation of the protostellar disk. Remember, we've gone through this ad nauseum now, where solar systems and stars like our sun, when it's formed, is formed out of a disk of material matter, and a disk of water. But they don't want to tell us that it's water. They tell us that the Kuiper belt, which is the remaining bit of the disk out of which our solar system was formed, is not water, is actually ice. So that's what they tell us is in the Kuiper belt, is ice, right? And then they tell us that surrounding the entire solar system is this giant, I guess, what do you call it, a sphere, a ball, certain, made out of ice. It's called the Oort cloud. So the Kuiper belt in the entire solar system sits in another ball however thick that the rim of that ball that surrounds our solar system is, nobody knows. We're speculating. This Oort cloud is now pretty much holding the whole solar system together. And if the solar system is a vacuum, is empty space, just with these balls of planets floating around, and then suddenly we have this layer of ice, this belt of ice, and then surrounding that ice is a ball of ice that holds it all together. I struggle with that because ice is chunky. It's in blocks. It's broken. It doesn't work. I think they're lying to us because they don't want to tell us that surrounding the entire solar system, or the solar disk, is the original water from which the solar disk was formed. And surrounding the entire solar system is this giant ball of water that they call the Oort cloud, and they tell us is made up of ice. And there are some other disturbing things about both asteroids and comets that I'm not going to go into right now, and where asteroids and comets may have their origin and not where they tell us they come from. And that gets very disturbing and very, very controversial, but I'll leave that for a much later lecture and presentation. So I think the best sort of look at what our solar system probably looks like based on these descriptions is something like this. However, I did find an article, and for the life of me, I can't find it. So I'm just going to tell you, probably about 3 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago, I remember finding this article that NASA suddenly discovers that there's evidence of this sphere of water that surrounds our solar system, a sphere of water that surrounds our solar system. No longer the Oort cloud, these infinite number of giant blocks of ice, the size of planets, small planets. So no longer is it the Oort cloud, but now suddenly they told us that it's actually a ball of water. And I remember reading the article, and they sort of try to guess how thick the wall of that ball of water is, or they called it a wall of water, not a ball of water, a wall of water surrounding our solar system. Slowly but surely, I get a sense that they are revealing to us what's going on and what space really is, and the fundamental building blocks of all of life and all of space, all of the stars and all of the planets. Now, I imagine you go down to your local pub for a drink, and you sit down next to somebody and you say, hey, did you know that our sun is water? There's water on the sun, and that the sun is actually made up of water. What do you think that person is going to say to you? They will think you're crazy. They will think you're stupid, you're an idiot, and you have no idea what you're talking about, because they know exactly what the sun is. They know exactly that the sun is a giant nuclear explosion, because that's what they were told all their life. And that's the problem with this kind of information. You can't share this with too many people because they just can't digest it. They can't accept it. They can't even receive the information because they instantly block it. They instantly think you're an idiot because they think they know what's going on, because they're educated and were very good regurgitators of the propaganda that was fed to them through their education system. And that's that's a large percentage of the people on Earth, unfortunately, are wired this way. And this is the problem we deal with. And the problem we deal with new knowledge and information, including the disinformation in the pandemic that we're currently facing. Extermination of the global population staring us in the face. And yet there are people that don't recognize it. They don't see what's going on. So let's carry on. Is it possible that water holds the universe together? And this is why water is sacred. And this is why water has infinite memory. And this is why water has so many different phases of water and states of water. And this is why water doesn't behave like any other element or any other mineral. It is completely and utterly unique. And why the two elements that make up water, oxygen and hydrogen, individually are highly explosive and highly corrosive, but at the same time, highly nutritive. They're full of nutrition. They feed us, they sustain us. And when you bring them together, they form water, which is not explosive, doesn't put out, doesn't doesn't explode, it actually puts out fires. So this is a very important aha moment for everybody to reach, the importance of water in pretty much everything in our lives, our reality, and in creation and the universe around us. So once again, I ask this question: is it possible that space that space is an infinite body of water, that space is water, and that our entire universe is just one giant toroidal field made up of water? And inside of this infinite toroidal field, we have these little electrically charged, whatever you want to call them, wormholes that connect different parts of this body of water. I don't know. We need to let our imagination run wild. Another important, fascinating thing is, do you remember in Stargate, the movie and TV series Stargate? Remember the giant ring that they used to set and go through the Stargate? What was in that ring? There was this water. They had to go through the water to go somewhere else through time, travel through the wormhole or the Stargate. So maybe they're already telling us that since the universe and space is water, Stargates must be water as well. So when you go through a Stargate or a wormhole, you actually have to go into and through water. I will leave that with you to contemplate. So a final little interesting, I think we're getting to the end of the hour and a half. Yes, we are. So I think I'm going to end on this note here, to just end on a really interesting thing, because I just love the Bible. For those that have been following my work, and I highly recommend, get the Bible and read it. And read it from the perspective of reading between the lines. It is such an incredible document. There's so much aha moments that you get from there that is advanced knowledge, advanced encoded information. And then you'll start seeing how the current regime, the current global governments and the global elite are trying to prevent us from accessing that information that is actually encoded in the Bible. So the Bible tells us, first of all, how can the earth's water be older than the sun? And we seem to get the answer from the Bible, because earth, land, and the seas and plants were created before the sun and the moon and the stars. Keep in mind that this is the sequence of events of creation. So the Spirit of God moved over the waters, and God said, let there be light. So first there was light and energy, and the sound and energy created light. And light is really a reference to electromagnetic fields or electromagnetic energy, not necessarily light as in, and we imagine light as in the sun. And then it carries on saying what God creates, day by day. And then says day one, day created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness is upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. That is very confusing. Then we carry on. God said, let there be a firmament in the sky of the waters, and let this divide the waters from the waters. This is a big moment, especially for those that believe the earth is not necessarily a ball, the earth is something else. And if, I've been saying this for a long time, I call the earth a toroidal field, the toroidal earth. You can read between the lines and figure out what I mean by that. Because if everything in our universe and creation, including stellar, solar disks and galaxies, everything is a torus, and atoms are toruses, and molecules are toruses, then Earth also has to be a torus and follow the same laws of nature, magnetic toroidal fields. And this is why Earth is magnetic fields, but I digress. And so then the God made the firmament and divided the waters. And now suddenly, if space is water, then it makes sense why there'd have to be a firmament to keep the water from falling down onto Earth. And, some of us will just simply wash it away and say, oh, you're just an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. You believe in silly stories from the Bible. And God called the firmament heaven and sky. And then we carry on, day 3, and God said, let the waters under the heavens gather unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And then God called the dry land earth, and gathering the waters to call the seas. And God saw it was good, and God said, let the earth bring forth grasses and herbs and seeds and fruit trees, and etc., etc. And the earth brought forth grasses and herbs yielding seeds all after its kind, and the trees yield fruits whose seeds was in itself after its kind, and God saw it was good. And it was only after all of this, on day 4 of creation, that God made the lights in the sky. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. Okay, so remember, this is a difference here. God hadn't yet divided the day from the night. He just called the light day and the dark night, but he hadn't divided it yet. And then suddenly, so again, if you understand, if you start exploring and imagining toroidal field mechanisms and how it works and how the spinning motion and how the angular momentum and the magnetic fields and how that all creates gravity and torsion fields and how that all creates electromagnetic fields, you start to realize that all of these descriptions here can in so many ways be encoded and plugged into the model of a formation of a toroidal field on a micro or a macro scale. So let's carry on here. So God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So here we know that the years and the seasons are connected to the spinning of the toroidal field. That's what I get out of this. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And God made 2 great lights. This is really interesting. The greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of the heavens, give light upon the earth. And to rule over the day and over night, and to divide the light from the darkness, and God saw it was good. So there's a lot of obviously soap opera stuff written in there as well, but the key things here is I think it gives us a very, very important connection to this thing called water, how water is inextricable from, or we cannot separate water from creation, cannot separate water from life, and it plays a very, very important part in everything in our reality. And I think we're going to end it here, and I'm going to just get out of this. And
we have a few questions, Michael, if you want me to read them to you.
I'm gonna come to the questions right now. I just want
to, perfect. Okay.
I just want to shut my stop share here. Okay, stop sharing. There we go. So I can, oh my God, I was almost off screen there. I didn't even realize. Okay, so questions. Okay. Jaybird, what are your thoughts of our human race making full contact with civilizations from other solar systems? Specifically, do you think that if we join the community of advanced civilizations, would it bring prosperity, or would it carry on risk of enslavement? That's a great question. It's a question that I postulated for many, many years of my life, and I'm sure many people, and you, Jaybird, also postulated it. Obviously, that's why you're asking it. And quite frankly, I don't know if I have a definitive answer to that. What I can tell you right now is that I'm beginning to, I'm not beginning, I've started to change my opinion on pretty much everything in our creation, in our reality, in our nature of reality. And now that I'm starting to grasp that space is a secret, and that they're hiding the secret from us, and that space might actually be just this never-ending body of water, it's just, to me, it makes a lot of sense. And this is why, in many ways, they're pushing the science fiction movies, you know, that show us the standard kind of model of space and planets and solar systems and traveling through space with rockets and all that, because that promotes the lie. So if space is not this infinite vacuum, which is impossible to be an infinite vacuum, because the physics of a vacuum are just impossible to contemplate in that kind of scenario. and next we're going to pick up with exactly this in the next lecture and workshop, so if space is water, how does this all work? And if you can't travel through space, if we can't get into space because we can't get through a firmament that is holding the water away from us so we don't drown in the water, I don't understand how this all works. And I'm beginning to believe that maybe the realities that we find ourselves, or the nature of reality, is actually very, very far different from this. And maybe even what I've just shared here is possibly not so. Maybe we're just observing something that is just, I don't know, it's a hologram or a reflection of something that's not there. Who knows what it is, but there's weird stuff going on. I'm beginning to believe that all other worlds, all other planets, all other realities are just different dimensions. So you can't really travel there through a space. You can't go from here to there and think you're traveling from here to another planet. And that, again, this is why they promote science fiction movies, because you have to travel in a rocket in a spaceship from here to there. And if you go faster than the speed of light, you can go from here to there a lot quicker. I think maybe that's part of the lie. That's part of the deception, that you can't travel through space. You actually can travel from one dimension to another. And this is why they call them jump rooms or stargates, where you actually just go from this frequency and this dimension and this density to another frequency, another dimension, and another density, and you're just suddenly there by changing the frequencies and dimensions around you, or however they structure that. I'm a little bit tired. My brain is a little overwhelmed today by all the things I've been doing. So if I'm stuttering and slurring a bit, forgive me for that. So right now, this is what I'm beginning to think. I think at this stage, space is a secret, and maybe even everything that we discussed here today, and maybe everything they're telling us about stars and the water in space and all that, is actually part of the deception. Who knows? Who knows how big the lies and the deceptions go? And that pretty much this reality we experience here is the only reality there is. We can't travel through space to another reality. We can only go to another reality or another being through moving through dimensions, going from this worldly dimension to another one. And if Earth is a toroidal field, is a torus, which I highly truly believe it is, like everything else that we can observe, we can study that, then that's a very easy explanation how we can move from this toroidal dimension to another toroidal dimension. And in many ways, the images that you see of the universe with those sparkling kind of threads of whatever they are, that could be an interesting depiction of potential stargates and flow of energy, but that connect toroidal fields that make up the universe. It looks messy, but it's actually not messy. It's probably a lot more structured than we think. The other question is, are the star beings, are they benevolent, or are they malicious? I guess it's all of the above. We certainly are experiencing some very serious malicious intent right now. That should be obvious to everybody. We're under severe attack, severe stress. So whoever is running the world right now, whoever's in charge at a very, very high level, hopefully not in charge for very much longer, is one of those malicious beings that is controlling the world for their own bizarre benefit. And the people and the beings that they have enslaved, some of the global elite that might be paying homage and be subservient to these higher malicious beings, are just their slaves, and they're just fearful of being exploited or punished or tortured. Who knows? Who knows why these malicious humans, these totalitarian megalomaniacs and sociopaths, who knows why they behave like that? Maybe they fear for their lives. Maybe they've been threatened. It's difficult to explain why anybody would behave like that. It's certainly not of human origin, and that's when, you know, when we say they inhumane. When somebody behaves inhumanely, inhumane is not human, which means not of human origin. So maybe these beings that are running the world right now are not of human origin. Where they come from is a difficult question. And this brings us back. I know this is a big question. That's why I'm spending a lot more time on this question than I imagined I would. But there's this is why I find it difficult to, and it's an interesting thing to talk about people that have met other beings from other planets and space travelers and people that claim they've traveled in spaceships and starships and so forth. That's important, and we need to address that. You know, I've never traveled in a spaceship. I've never been abducted that I know of. You know, I'm certainly not aware of it. But I've spoken to people that claim they've been taken by beings and been in weird spaceships. I know that Beyond the Light Barrier, Elizabeth Clara, the famous South African woman from the Drakensberg that wrote that book Beyond the Light Barrier, where she was taken by was it Archon? And he took her into space, and she had children with him, and he took her to another planet, and he flew around our solar system and showed her the planets and flew into the sun. It's an interesting book. I don't know how to deal with that at this stage. I don't know. So interesting question. We certainly are facing some weird looking creatures here on Earth. We know that from many of the books that have been written about the Greys and how the Greys have been discovered and hidden by the military and so forth, and fought by the military. Especially that book called UFO Highway. If you haven't read UFO Highway, that's a great book to read. Really, really exciting, interesting book to read. So I don't know how to answer that question. I guess we all have our own feelings. Right now, we do need to manifest. What we do learn from this is that we are one with the Creator. We are of the Creator. Our DNA is encoded with all the important stuff to allow us and give us the possibility to manifest, to be co-creators of our own universe, of many universes, and to create pretty much anything we can imagine. So, you know, if we imagine balls floating around in space, then we could probably create that kind of universe. Who knows? And if we can imagine different worlds and different creatures and different beings, then maybe we can create those. And it goes by, and vice versa. Maybe other beings have the capacity of doing that as well. So this whole thing of creation is a fascinating thing, and it's a never-ending quest. But what it does do, it allows you, because you ask these questions, it does allow you to activate your DNA. And the more of these impossible questions we ask, the more we break down the walls and the barriers of our own, dogma of our own belief systems. And we have to be open to anything and everything, as crazy and as incredible as it may sound. You know, and I'll throw flat Earth in there because it's a very important subject that we need to discuss at some stage. That cannot just be shunned aside. And by that, I'm not saying that I believe the Earth is flat. I believe the Earth is a torus. And I'll be very, very clear about this, like everything else. And if the Earth is a torus, it has to come with specific basic rules that apply to toroidal fields. So we need to discuss everything and be prepared to discuss anything and everything. And what I can tell you, however, is, for example, two people, I won't mention their names, so I don't want to put them on the spot. They're very well-known people. You probably know them. That people that claim they've been to other planets, other stars. Actually, three people, not two, three of my friends and people that I know that have been to other planets and other stars and claim to have met other beings and interacted with other beings and so forth. Have told me very, very clearly they have never traveled in a spaceship from Earth to anywhere else. They've always gone through a jump room, as they often call it. You go into this little room and boom, there's some technology called jump room technology. You probably know about it. And they go from there to wherever their destination is. And then after that, and so I guess that's how many, three people have told me this. They've never traveled in a spaceship and seen the Earth from space and seen, oh, wow, what a beautiful Earth it is. So they have not seen that. So they've not seen Earth from space. So I don't know that people that claim they've traveled in spaceships and seen Earth from space, I don't know what to say to that because I have not had that experience. So it was a long and winded answer because it's a simple question, but it's such a complex thing to determine what's going on here on Earth and this nature of reality of ours. So let's carry on to Julia and Aya. This is Aya. How do you deal with being shy or scared to share this with other people and your friends? I feel shy to share with other kids because they think I'm crazy or they don't agree with talking about this stuff. Julia and Chaya, thank you. This is a very important question. So I'm not sure how old you are, but from this question, maybe you can just put your age on here so I know how old you are, and hopefully base my answer to relevant to your age. Your shyness is a big thing, and you're not alone. There are millions and millions of people like you that are just shy to share their knowledge and information, and it's a tough thing. Even myself, I know that when I find myself in situations where I feel hostile people or hostility, that I don't bring certain subjects up because I don't necessarily want to start an argument, because I know how some things people just react, knee-jerk reaction. Oh, how can you say that? You're an idiot. You're so bloody stupid, or whatever. People do respond like that. And sometimes I do when I want to provoke, if I'm in a mood to provoke, if I have little respect for the people that I'm with and they behave like idiots. And that has happened, and I feel guilty for doing that. But sometimes you do these things, we're all human, and you provoke people because you just want to put them in their place, or just create an opportunity to be able to give them information that they didn't have before, whether they like it or not. So my feeling is that just go gently about launching this to people. Not everyone is ready to hear this information, but what you can do is you can use the science. You can, for example, say, quote NASA. You can say like, wow, did you see that? As much as we know that NASA is a disinformation agency, it doesn't matter. Most people still believe that NASA is this amazing place, right? So this is actually a great example of what I call using the tools of enslavement as tools of liberation. So now you're using the tools of disinformation as tools to open people's minds. So this is an equivalent, beautiful kind of analogy that you can use, and a tool that you can use. So you can say, oh, wow, have you seen this press release from NASA that they're finding stars that are shooting water bullets? That's just amazing. I mean, how is it possible? And then you can just elaborate on that, say, so, I mean, if stars are shooting water bullets, it means the stars must have water. And how is that possible? Does that mean that stars aren't nuclear explosions and nuclear reactors? And by the way, that's no longer even the fact that 30 years ago or whatever, they were still calling our sun and stars nuclear reactors and giant nuclear explosions, and that we've moved so far away from there that today all astronomers, whether they blinded by the science or enlightened, everybody calls the sun an electromagnetic phenomenon. So this is a well-accepted concept and a well-accepted belief within the astrophysics and astronomy areas and scientific research arenas and subjects and sectors and so forth, that the sun is an electromagnetic phenomenon. It's not an exploding nuclear reaction, which was really taught to us at school. I come from the era where that was taught to me at school. Sun is an exploding nuclear reaction. So you can use NASA, use the European Space Agency, use the magazines, the official magazines that publish this information. So you can say, oh, did you see National Geographic just published a thing on space dust coming to Earth, and the space dust is filled with water. Isn't that amazing? How is it possible for space dust to be filled with water? Or wow, do you know that they found water on an asteroid? And then so you can use the science to throw it in as an introductory statement. I find that's probably the easiest way to get a reaction from the people that you're with, and then you just feel your way around. And the best is always for the people that argue with you, people that are not open to information, your research that you're sharing with them. And a lot of people are just not open to that. They don't want to hear somebody else telling their research. They want to know, well, where did you get that from? I've never heard of that. That's a bunch of nonsense. I've never heard of that. And they use an expression like, I've never heard of that, as a scientific argument. And just remind yourself, how often has it happened? And you tell somebody something and the reaction is, oh, what a bunch of rubbish. I've never heard of that. Well, that's not a scientific argument. Never heard of that just tells me that you're ignorant and you're ill-informed and you're not educated about the specific subject. You've never heard of it means you've never heard of it, so you can't discuss it. So sit up, pay attention, shut up and listen, right? And learn from what I'm telling you. And then ask some questions. That should be the reaction, not I've never heard of it. That's a horrible, horrible reaction from anybody. So just check yourself if you ever do that. Wow, that's rubbish. I've never heard of that. Don't do it. It's not a clever answer. Right, so I hope I've answered that. Go easy, go gently, and if somebody says I've never heard of it, say, well, let me tell you a bit about it, because I've just read this in National Geographic or Scientific American or et cetera, et cetera. So let's carry on. I see a few questions popped up and then they disappear. I don't know why they disappear. I wonder, this is from anonymous attendee. I wonder what could have been in history the moment and motivation that they stopped telling us the truth and or started telling us lies about our surroundings. That's a fantastic question. That's an excellent question. And in fact, it's something I was contemplating earlier today when I was going through this, the slide presentation. I was watching a few videos just to remind me about certain things. And what I was reminded about is the ancient civilizations and how incredibly advanced the ancient civilizations were. If you look at the pyramids, if you look at all these ancient civilizations across the world, from South America, Europe, North America, everywhere, Mexico, etc., the pyramids in Africa, the stone circles in South Africa, Adam's calendar, Stonehenge, etc., Borobudur, etc. These ancient civilizations that go back dozens and hundreds of thousands of years, right? Again, when we date these sites, we're speculating. We're not really dating them. We're speculating based on certain observations that we've made on our limited knowledge of science and physics and chemistry and so forth. And then we speculate about the dates of these sites. But what is now clearly and unquestionably evident, that all these ancient civilizations, Vim, this is Vim that I'm talking to. Okay, anonymous attendee. Thank you, Vim. All these ancient civilizations had incredibly advanced knowledge of levitation, knowledge of laser technology and Caesar technology, of toroidal field energy, of magnetron energy, of creating Caesar beams, laser beams, levitating stuff. They had cone-shaped tools, they had torus stones, they had unks, they had little magnetrons on their wristwatches, magnetrons encoded into all kinds of things. They built structures that we can't replicate today, over and over and over and over and over again. So clearly these people were incredibly advanced, whoever they were, whether they were humanoid or whether they looked different to us, whether they were giants or middle-sized giants or little giants, and there were many sizes of giants. We don't really know. So we keep speculating. We have evidence of some of the giants and so forth. The evidence is everywhere, and I'm digressing a bit, but so let's come to the technology. So what we do know about these ancient civilizations is that they were incredibly advanced. They used sound, resonance, frequency, vibration for pretty much everything they did. And it's encoded in the pyramids and the technology they left behind. And when I say technology, I refer to the pyramid because the pyramid is a technology, and all the other pyramids are all technologies. Pyramid shape and structures is already a technology. So the moment you see anybody build anything in the shape of a pyramid, you know that somewhere along the line, they were given that knowledge and information about why and how they should build things in pyramidal shapes and structures. So very important to realize that they were very, very advanced. And something happened. They knew everything. You couldn't, they obviously didn't have democracy or capitalism or communism. They lived in a very, very different kind of world. They had some sort of a hierarchical system. What that was is difficult. We're speculating. We call them gods, and we call them ancient kings and gods that ruled the world. They were omnipotent. They could travel very quickly everywhere. They seemed to be coming in and, to and from the stars, disappearing to the stars and coming back from the stars, reappearing. So at some stage, these very advanced beings that lived a very different life on a very different world that we know today, they stopped, they disappeared. And all their structures and technology was left behind. And we don't know what happened. We're speculating. Were they killed by some other malicious beings? The way that the conscious and creative souls in the world are being killed and massacred today? That's what's happening right now. Trust, we realize that all the creative spirits, all those that want to create, invent, share the inventions of technology, energy, cures for disease, all the incredible technologies and incredible creations that humanity and the human spirit is capable of, all of that is being shut down and blocked and stopped from reaching humanity so that it benefits us. So that's a malicious intent. That's happening maliciously, and very, very ugly things that are going on around it.